Hello, and welcome to Hold the Pass, a podcast all about passing on knowledge from every corner of the world of racing. My name is Misha.
And I'm Fatima.
And today we have an amazing guest. He has been in the motorsport space for over a decade. He has worked with WTF1, the Motorsport Network, and just joined Crash.net as a social content creator. He is the creator of Motorsport 101. He is Dre Harrison. Welcome to the show, Dre.
Can I just say, that is the greatest intro I have ever had in my life. That would not have looked out of place on a pro wrestling show. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm delighted to have had such a glorious intro to my own appearance. I love that. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're everywhere in the racing space, but how has the racing off-season been treating you?
Looking for jobs, mostly this off season. I mean, there's no getting around it. I was unfortunately let go from the Motorsport Network last August, so it's a lot of it was just literally grinding away, creating content, writing, podcasting, whatever it was. And I ended up doing more videos than I normally do purely because I was out of work and suddenly I had a lot more free time on my hands. So it was literally, I mean, that's how I got into this space in the first place. It was literally just banging out content and hoping the right person would notice. So I think it's kind of fitting that I had to go back to the well to a degree before this gig. I mean, for those who don't know, at the time of recording, I only started Crash a week ago. So the extra chapter of the intro was perfectly and beautifully timed, if nothing else. So yeah, the off season. It was a bumpy road. Christmas was tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's always a difficult time of year when you're out of work and you got family you want to support and things like that. So it was a difficult winter. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm very, very glad I'm able to start February, and being able to get back on my feet is a beautiful thing. And I'm not gonna lie, not been an easy off season, but I'm making it sound a lot more positive than it actually was, only because there was a happy ending at the end of this. It had not been an easy one, is what I would say, and it's tough out there for a lot of folks right now. So I get it in that sense, and I know what it's like on that side of the fence for sure.
I completely understand. I mean, like the fact that you're bouncing back, which at the perfect time, actually, when it comes to your new role. I mean, I completely understand not working. I left my job way back in the summer because I was just so overwhelmed with everything, and I was like, I need to just take a break. And like, great for mental, terrible for financials. Not the best idea. But honestly, sometimes like you kind of just need to go back to your roots, I find, just to figure out where you want to go next. And like I said, like, honestly, you starting this new role at Crash.net is at the perfect time because the new season is about to start. We're dealing with all the livery launches. Do you have a favorite one by any chance that you've come across so far?
Out of all the F1 teams?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because, like, I am one of these old cynics that can't stand these sorts of launches normally, only because they're very stuffy, they're very PR driven. It's not really for the fans. I think they're often built with sponsors in mind and corporate partners, and for the influencers out there to hang around the car and make it all look all glamorous and all of that. So I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan of them. Like, I used to be a big fan of Haas just saying, here's a press release, here's what our car looks like, here you go, here's a picture, here's our press release, the car looks great, and off we go. So I must admit, I'm a little bit like anti-journalist in that sense when it comes to the car launch in general. I'm trying to think, is there one that stood out to me? I remember how good it was a couple of years ago, like when Ferrari had their whole 2024 launch, and they just did it all at trackside at Fiorano, and they actually did the laps in real time with an actual crowd and audience at Fiorano. That, I must admit, was pretty cool. I am also biased because I do support Ferrari, so for my sins. Again, I'm a little bit biased in that regard, but yeah, like, I must admit, I'm not the biggest car launch guy because often you're like just looking for scraps or more than anything else. But I do admit there have been some cool ones like that. I miss the old days of car launches when they were like huge deals. You would get live music and performance. I remember when McLaren had the Spice Girls, and they had Jamiroquai in years past. Again, I'm biased. Again, huge Jamiroquai fan. So like, it was, so like I used to miss when car launches were a big deal. So it's kind of wild. One of the few people that liked the 75 launch last year. I was like, okay, this is actually a neat idea. Maybe only do it once, but like as a one-off, yeah, great idea.
Yeah, actually, Fatima and I were talking about that right before the show, and how much we kind of we enjoyed the F175 because it was more of like a spectacle.
Yeah,
like, it was kind of refreshing in that sense.
Like, Formula One is a spectacle sport. Like, we are talking about 20 cars going around racetracks at 200 miles an hour, like, 60, 70 times every, I was about to say every 2 weeks, but that's not really the case anymore. No, but it's a spectacle sport. So treat it like a big deal and people will come. And again, I love that. I mean, I was working in Autosport at the time under the MS network, and I was doing all the podcast stuff behind them when they had all the journos and social teams down there for that 75 launch, and they hated it, and I loved it because I was just like, I was like, good. This is exactly F1 needs to lean into shit like this. Pardon my language. I don't know how you guys feel about swearing.
No, you're good.
Go right ahead.
Brilliant, good, good to know. But no, like the journos and the media crowd hated it, and I loved it because I was like, this is exactly what Formula One needs to do, because fans love stuff like this. They love the spectacle of it, and as a big one-off night to get people to care about your sport. And it worked out. Over 1 million people watched it on YouTube when it came around at the time. It was a huge success. I'm actually surprised F1 didn't do it again this year, but again, I think the teams got very pissy about it because I think they want their own launches and they want to do their own stuff rather than marching to F1's beat of their own drum, so to speak. But I, for what it's worth, I loved it. I think that's exactly the sort of stuff that F1 is very good at, being the spectacle. Mm-hmm. Lean into it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like Eurovision.
Agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
The ultimate one-night spectacle. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly that's the amount of people that lean into Eurovision is like people that will go into that as a one-night event just because it's Eurovision is off the charts. Like, so why not lean into that?
It's perfect because it's one night, so I don't have to keep up with every other team's launches throughout the month, which I can't do. I cannot do. I don't have the time. Just have it happen in one night, and I will sit there for 2-3 hours, and I will watch it. I will clap my hands. I need to clap my hands, and I'm happy. I'm so happy.
And then when you tune into a team launch now, it's like you won't even see the car for half an hour. It's like
that's the thing.
We got to talk to the team principal. We got to talk to the chief designer. We got to talk to the sponsor representative. Like, again, I'm on a site now that specializes more in MotoGP than Formula One, and they're even worse for this. They will get, like, I was seeing one of the teams, Pramac, the other day, and this was a big deal because they had signed Toprak Razgatlioglu, one of the biggest superbike riders in the world, and huge in Turkey. Like, he's a massive celebrity over there, like genuine, legitimate mainstream celeb. Like what Hamilton would be in the UK, Toprak is in Turkey. And they went through half an hour's worth of sponsor chats, team principal interviews, designers, and they finally revealed the bike, and it was 40 minutes into the live show. And I'm like,
that is insane.
I don't know how you expect fans and people that want to see you are going to cope with that kind of delay. It's just really irritating. I don't know how
and
they
it's
put
always
up with it.
awkward. A little bit awkward.
Massive, because we're all just sitting there like, just show the bike already.
So you seem to be that you're a sports head through and through. From my understanding, you are into motorsport, you're into wrestling, you're into baseball. You've also dabbled in gaming content here and there throughout your younger years. So you're just you're here and you're here to stay. But it seems to be that your passion really does stem from motorsport. So I just want to know, what is it about Formula One exactly that made you turn your passion into motorsport into a career?
Just throwing a bunch of ideas at the wall and seeing what stuck, I think, more than anything else. I mean, a little bit of backstory is that, like, my dad was the reason why I was such a sports nut growing up. Like, my dad loved his sport when I was a child. So it was and I'll be honest, he was a huge glory hunter. So Manchester United, the Los Angeles Lakers, Valentino Rossi, Michael Schumacher. He loved backing winners because my dad was shameless like that. But he would.
He's a real one.
He's a real one, and the thing is that every weekend when the sports are on, that's how we bonded. It was a game of football, it was a Formula One race, it was a MotoGP race, it was something almost every weekend, and that's how I became a huge sports fan. So as I was growing up, and that obviously that maintained as I became a teenager. I always wanted to be I did want to be a gaming YouTuber when I was a teen, because this was right around the time that Call of Duty blew up on YouTube. There was a huge COD scene. The Cnanas, the Hutches of the world were massive. This was the massive growing area that was YouTube, was gaming. And when it was my 18th birthday, I asked my parents for a Hopodge HD PVR. That was the go-to gaming recorder of its age. You whack it into your Xbox 360 and you start recording stuff. And honestly, it was completely by chance that the first game I ever played off it was F1 2010. It was the very first Codemasters racing game for the Xbox 360. And it just kind of stuck in that sense. Like, I tried dabbling in FIFA, but like, it was F1 I kept getting drawn back to. And it just worked out that way, that I just started to gain a following because I was putting my opinions about the actual sport out while there was Cody's F1 gameplay in the background. It was F1 2010 and 11, all the way through the years as it was going on. And it worked. I gained a small following. I had about 6,000 YouTube subscribers in my prime when I was a game YouTuber, which is nothing now. But in the mid 2010s, that was huge. I was like genuinely a top 5 F1 YouTuber on the platform, and I was rubbing shoulders with people that like Arav and Tiamat Marduk now, who are genuine huge influencers in their own right in the F1 space. They stuck with it, bless them. I couldn't. But honestly, I fell out of love with that a little bit, and like I must admit, I kind of crashed out about the idea of chasing those numbers, because I was around 6,000, whereas people like Arav and Ben and Super GT, you might know now Steve Brown as part of Team Quadrant, or was ex Team Quadrant, now independent, but one of the best Gran Turismo players out there in the world. They were getting 20, 30, 50,000. They were growing at such a huge rate, and I couldn't keep up with that. And honestly, I got too wrapped up in the numbers. So I was sitting here at a time where I was like, well, okay, what do I do instead? And this was while I was also in university, and I was doing a degree in broadcast journalism. And this the third year of my degree, so final year, and I got a choice. It was either the good old-fashioned 10,000 word dissertation, which everybody loves, or I love the team was just like, nope. Yeah, it's exactly how I feel about it. It was either a 10,000 word dissertation or a special project of some kind. And my attitude was, well, I've already done YouTube videos. I kind of always wanted to do a podcast. And it hit me. Why not just do a motorsport podcast? And I had a couple of friends who were in the space as me. Ryan Eric King, you might now know him, he writes for Jalopnik, very prominent in social spaces. And between us, we just did a motorsport podcast. And we did a 10-episode run. That was going to be my university special project. It was done on a website. Again, I had a friend who was a website designer, so she drew one up for me. Still, I'm friends with her now, 15 years later. Shout out to Steph. And we just put it all on there, and it got a first. It got me a 2-1 for my degree, so I graduated with it. And I just stuck with it, and it's become Motorsport 101. I joke about it with people that are new that it is a university project that got way out of hand, because that was 10 episodes. We're now at 630, so it's grown into a bit of it's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's got the Little Shop of Horrors, I should say, where it's like the plant has now outgrown the house, so to speak. But it was. That's how I channeled sports into something more, because I loved sports. I loved talking about it. I loved putting myself out there with it. And through hook or by crook, it turned into something a lot more, to the point where I was able to open a Patreon. It was able to be self-funded by fans that liked the show. And while I actually had a career as a betting shop manager, I did 6 years for William Hill and Paddy Power, taking people's bets, and that was the bit on the side, essentially. So the fact that in 2022 the race came calling was the shock of my life. I was just working in a bookies one day, and I get my email, and I'm like, it's the CEO of the race saying, "Hi Dre, we've seen your work. Can we have a chat at some point?" And I'm like, "Huh?"
Absolutely, we can.
Yes, please. So, what do you want to talk about, sir? But that's basically my backstory. It was basically just a lot of digging and just channeling something that I was passionate about. I never ever thought to myself seriously that it could end up being a career. It was literally a hobby that turned into something a lot more for me. And now, God, I want to say it's 15 years in September. Like 2011 was when I first started making gaming YouTube videos. So we're nearly 15 years into that now, and I'm still here somehow, which is... I'm 34 in August. I was 18 when I started, so it's been a long time coming. I've literally grown up into this because of that. So it's something that I hold great pride in, as well as a little bit of delusion, because you kind of have to when you've been in this space for so long, So it's worked out quite well in the end, and I'm very happy with that. But it was a lot of bumps and a lot of stuff to get in the way, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been a crazy journey for you. And you've kind of been in the motorsport creator space for so long and seen so many different iterations of it. What would you say that covering F1 in the early days, like what is something that fans today might not appreciate about like the earlier aspects of the journey? Yeah.
Trusted sources and information. Like it's kind of wild that now, because of elements of Twitter and other forms of social media, is that everybody now thinks they're an expert. And I'll be the first person to tell you, I'm not. Like, I'm pretty good at being able to relay Formula One into more other real world sort of sports or optics and things like that. That's something that I specialize in quite well, the entertainment side of it. I'm not a technical expert. I couldn't tell you, how a diffuser would properly work, or, why this floor setting's so good on a McLaren, but it might not be so good on a Red Bull. But I think with everybody now being able to grow their own platforms, and there's a lot more people that are on the outside looking in, I think something that has been a little bit lost has been media literacy. I think that's a huge element that I think we take for granted. And I think this is just a life thing, not just a Formula One thing in general. I think it's in general. I think that's something that a lot of us need to take a look at generally. But I think trusted sources, journos that are actually in the paddock, people that are working that grind. I mean, I was very fortunate to be able to work with some incredible journos in my time with the race and with Autosport. They're genuinely so good, and they work so hard. And that's the sort of bond and the relationship that takes years. Getting trusted sources, being able to put stuff out there on and off the record, being able to talk to the right people and chase the right stories, that takes years. And that takes years of knowing the right people, having the right phone numbers, and building trust. That's something you don't get on the internet nowadays, where everybody thinks they know better and they can put 2 and 2 together and it ends up being 22. And that's just not how the game works now. And I feel like because we're so close to these people in the sport now, because social media has been, so fundamental in bringing us closer together, there's consequences that come with it. There's drawbacks that come with that. And one of them, I believe, is that people think they know more than they actually do. And that's going to sound a little bit arrogant coming from me, but as someone that's been in this game for so long, and I've known some of these journalists for over a decade, and I've seen how they work, and I've seen their work ethic, and I've seen what they can put out. We take it for granted so much now that and overall the journalism game is struggling. I make no bones about it. There's less money in this game than there was 10, 15 years ago. And I've seen a lot of good people lose work. I've seen a lot of good people be shoved out the door. I was one of them, multiple times over. I'm a walking example of how it can also go wrong as well as it can go right. So it's that trust and being able to have meaningful information is something that I think we very much take for granted now in this space.
I agree. Do you think that because the space is just so oversaturated that it's easier to push people out who have credentials because they can pay people cheaper who may not have as much experience or credentials, but they're able to get them for a cheaper price than people who have put the work in the industry?
I'm going to sound like a bit of a hater here for a minute, so you've been warned.
Go ahead.
But
it's okay. That's what we're here for.
The rise of the influencer has fundamentally changed the game, and I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. Now, more eyeballs on a sport is probably a net positive in the long run, because more people to watch, more people to care is probably a good thing overall. But as someone who's been in the industry and out of the industry back and forth a couple of times and seeing how the landscape has changed, I think Fatima is spot on. I think it's a little bit of oversaturation, but I think it's also a shift in where the money is going. 10, 15 years ago, if there was a big event, say a car launch, for example, we talked about earlier, or something to do with a team, you'd invite the world's press. They'd all, have a cocktail, have nibbles, and talk about a new car. They'd get interviews and media time with the key figures involved, and you'd get a write-up the next day, maybe even the same day if it's early on. Now, they're paying influencers huge amounts of money to cover these events instead, and these big corporations that are putting these events on, and it's not entirely, their fault, but it's the smart thing to do, where they could pay a journalist, or not even pay a journalist, they could invite journos down for an event, or they could pay a little bit of money to have a content creator come down, get exactly what they want out of them because you've had a paid agreement to do so, and then they've got the message that they want to portray out there unfiltered, and the middleman, us journos, get cut out because there's no guarantee that we're going to write a story. There's no guarantee that an editor will put that in their piece or put it on their website or put it in their magazine. The game has changed. The game has changed in that a lot of the money has come out of conventional journalism and it's moved into PR. Moved into PR, moved into influencers, moved into getting people that aren't necessarily as knowledgeable or have those sources or have that trusted information, but they want to just get clicks and get engagement by any means necessary because they can guarantee it if they pay these people. Now, unfortunately, that means for people like me who want to be who want to be journalists, because that was my background. I always wanted to be a journo. I wanted to write. I wanted to be a podcaster and whatnot. It sucks because I've seen too many people lose work as a result of that. So, it's I'm kind of in two minds about it in the sense of, look, it is more eyeballs in a sense, and it is, we are seeing a rise of an alternative media, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, it also means that money is coming out of conventional journalism, and it's going to get to a point where if your favorite magazine or favorite publication goes kaput because they can't make enough money to pay people, we're losing people out of a paddock. And the people that are replacing them are not journalists. They're people that are going to have video cameras and at the worst, it's standing around and making the cars look pretty. And that's not what I believe in. And I don't believe that's quote-unquote content. That's where I'm looking at as the situation develops, and that's something that I've noticed post pandemic. Post Drive to Survive, and again, people are going to go, oh, DTS, just DTS that, because it's such a huge flashpoint in how Formula One's been covered in the last half decade or so. But post DTS and post pandemic, the landscape has massively changed. A lot of people ran into the F1 space thinking there was new money to be made, and I think 5-6 years on, a lot of people are realizing the honeypot isn't as big as they thought it was going to be.
I see.
Yeah, I think even newer creators are definitely, it's kind of a wake-up call. I kind of have a two-part question leading on from that. Given everything that's kind of been happening in the creator space and in journalism and whatnot, has there ever been a moment where you seriously considered walking away from the industry? And what has kept you motivated and engaged?
Look, I've said this before to people on socials. I nearly quit Motorsport 101 at the end of 2022. The end of 22 was going to be my last season covering M101. I'd already got it into my head after the summer break at the end of that season. As Max was winning race after race post porpoising updates, I was like, is this worth my time? Is the opportunity ever going to come? Because by this point, I've been doing it for 10 years, and I was thinking, is this ever going to happen? And I was ready to pack it in, and then, as mentioned, I got that email from the race, and they offered me a job as one of the 4 hosts of WTF1 post-reboot. So I absolutely have considered walking away entirely. I nearly did, almost by force, with this latest redundancy that I had to deal with when I was let go from MS in August 2025. Like, 6 months had passed, and there was just nothing in the motorsport space that worked for me. And so I was... When you're looking for jobs, you look first in where you want to be. I think that's natural. Where you go, motorsport gigs. So you look on motorsport jobs, you look on LinkedIn, you see if any teams have got anything available. So I was thinking like social media, maybe PR, maybe HR, those sorts of areas, maybe communications of some kind. Wasn't really happening. I live in London. Most of the F1 teams are based, for those who don't know, outside the UK. They're in the middle of the country. And spoiler alert, black folks don't live in the country. That's just like real talk. If you're in the UK and you're black, you live either like Birmingham, Manchester, or London, mostly. Like that green belt in the middle of the country where all the F1 teams are based. You will not see a person of colour for miles. So that it wasn't really realistic, so I couldn't. That would be me literally packing up my entire livelihood and moving out, and that would have been very hard to do because when I was single, and doing that by yourself is very, very expensive. The cost of living in the UK is not great, so that was kind of out. So then I started looking at, I did podcast production for the Motorsport Network, so I'll start looking at audio producer gigs, so anybody needs a podcast editor. Then you realise they're all into video now. Again, nature of social media, nature of business. The words pivot to video, it has people lose sleep at night. So, everybody, if you want to be in audio, you've got to be in video because people want video editors now. It's such a versatile, and the podcast is such a versatile format at this point. Everybody wants to be video editors now instead of being audio editors. And as an audio editor myself, the video game is a lot more technically complicated. So that kind of ruled me out there. So by that point, I'm now drifting more towards what I used to do, which again, I was a betting shop manager for 6 years. So I was looking at going back to the bookies, going back to Paddy Power or William Hill, the more established bookmakers, and nothing was coming up. So by force, I was almost thinking, damn, I might have to just take any retail job I can get to get back on my feet until I can start thinking about maybe waiting for the right door to open. And again, I got very lucky that the old content creator they had for Crash had just moved on to go to the race as a multimedia editor, and that opened the door for me. Again, I had a couple of friends who had written for them, who I'd worked with before at MS, and they were like, "Dre, this is perfect for you. Put a feeler out there," and that's how I got this gig. So, yeah, a couple of times I genuinely did consider walking away because by the time I was in my mid-20s, I was like, I don't want to work in a bookies forever. But at the same time, I would like to work this full time, but nothing's happening. And again, nature of the industry, there just isn't very many designated motorsport jobs when it comes to content creation, journalism in general. You might see 3 or 4 come up a year because 1, it's a small world, and 2, they tend to rotate a lot. So guys have written for if they've written for 1 publication, the chances they've written for 2 or 3. They've done the rounds a little bit. So someone that's, I mean, okay, let's be real. The race was a breakaway from Autosport. No shit. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people realize that the race was just a bunch of Autosport editors and journos that broke away and thought, we can do it better ourselves. So that's how it came about. So 2 of the biggest players of the game are all using the same pool of creative talent. So there's not a lot of opportunities out there. So yeah, I absolutely, I considered walking away at the time. Did I miss part 2 in any of that? Because I did waffle a bit on that one.
No, you covered it. I think I was just asking about like what had kept you motivated.
Just the idea that I love doing it. Like, if anyone's ever listened to Motorsport 101, I know a lot of people have, and I think a few people that will listen to this have, because we are very hardcore. We don't have a huge amount. It's like this maybe 500, 600 listeners total across the board for us. But
if you think about that, sorry, I just have to cut in. Like, sure. In the grand scheme, 500, 600 listeners is actually quite a lot of people, especially like if you're not, I don't know, I can't recall if M101 is doing video podcasts as well, if you're just audio.
A little bit here and there, yeah.
Yeah, but to like have people just straight up listen to your audio, 500, 600 people, that is a lot of people, especially in this day and age when everyone's watching video content.
I'd like to think so, and like I said, this is talking to someone who nearly quit YouTube entirely because I got too wrapped up in the numbers, and then you realise that's actually quite a decent fan base, and the ones who do listen love it. To the fact that I said they will go out of their way to Patreon, they'll financially support us. The people that do get on the wagon do seem to love it, and that is what motivates me more than anything else. I love having a small community of people that genuinely love what we do, and that passion for it, and that community, and that people uplift you in that sort of space. And that, for me, that was my motivation. It wasn't, I'm going to be the next Matt and Tommy, or that I'm going to be, the next Tomo McCluskey, or going to be huge in this space. I never thought I was ever going to be that person, but my priority shifted because of the audience that I ended up being able to cultivate. Because, it wasn't a huge transcendent amount of people to the point where you could say, I'm living comfortably, I can do this full time, I can go to Grand Prix off the back of and wait for sponsors to run around. That was never me. But the people that did listen and sent positive feedback and sent such kind messages, and were giving us money even through the pandemic, and like 2020, and people were like, I said to people, listen, if you're a Patreon backer, I'm not going to take your perks away at a time like this, because money is important. We don't know when we're going to get out of this. And we didn't lose a single penny of support. That stuff, it's the stuff that makes you upset and emotional. I mean, upset in a good way, because it's just, that's the stuff that motivates me, because like people just genuinely love it, and when I hear that from people, it makes me want to keep going. And I'm very, very fortunate in that sense to have the audience that I do, and I hope that comes across in the show and other forms of media, because like I said, I'm blessed to be able to do this, and was able to parlay it into working full time in the industry. I know how lucky I am, and so that for me has always been my biggest motivation to keep doing it, is because I'm fortunate to be here, and in every sense, and I don't ever want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I mean, it's like you have such a passion for it and it comes through as you're talking about it. And like while we're off the back of talking about, your podcast, M101, when I was, getting prepared for this show, I was watching one of your previous podcasts that you have done with Alex Goldschmidt. And in that
yes.
You mentioned, yeah, that was a really good episode, by the way.
Goldie gets good stuff out of me. He's got a big heart, Goldie. I've known him for over a decade. Good guy.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's amazing. But yeah, you mentioned in that, you say that Motorsport 101 is a show made by all walks of life for all walks of life. And I honestly think that's such a beautiful concept, and that it's a concept that a lot of fans can relate to, especially as Formula One is growing. And I assume that when you guys first started M101, this was a market that was not yet tapped into, that you guys did end up tapping into. And I guess my question to you is, was that done intentionally, or did it just kind of happen that way?
It just kind of happened that way. It was never my plan to go. I'll be honest with you. I wish I could come back and say we were always going to be this massively diverse show. No, I'm not going to lie to you. That was not the intended plan. It just kind of worked out that way, in the sense of my main plan with Motorsport 101 when we actually took it to the point where it was beyond the 10-episode uni run was be an alternative to the big players. I was quite cynical about the auto sports, the races didn't even exist until 2020, but like the auto sports of the MSs of the world, and me thinking that, we're out to get those kinds of people. Hell, one of our long-running series was mocking the auto sports at 50 every year, until I ended up working for them and having to deal with their editor, Kevin Turner, having to look him dead in the eye and go, "Hi, Kev. I'm great to meet you."
I mean, it's great that they hired you.
Yeah.
I thought that door was closed.
They appreciate the humor.
They did. Funnily, like their editor Kevin loved it, and I'm very fortunate that he saw the funny side of it, and to a degree. But no, it just kind of landed that way. That it turned out that I think because we were an alternative voice, and I've said before, we take a lot of pride in being able to talk about the difficult subjects on the show. We will cross into the world of politics with Formula One because it's a very political sport. And I think more than the average. I think a lot more than people want to admit sometimes.
Yep.
For a lot of people, that's a dirty area that they just will not tap into, because I think for them it's easier to deal with if they just ignore it. We've never been that. We've done Black Lives Matter specials. We've done, elements talking about the nastier side of Formula One, the walks of life that it seems to ignore, the social, economical problems that the sport can often have, and who it's shutting out. We've never shied away from that, and I think that's been part of our appeal over the years, is that we will go to places that most places won't. And I also think that, again, the people that resonated with us and wanted to be a part of the show, I think to a degree just happened to be parts of, from again, walks of life we didn't know about, the LGBT plus community. Adam Johnson, our third ever host, later found out that he was bi later on down the road. We've had multiple trans guests and have had significant parts of our history, like Alicia, but also Ed Hamilton, and we've had what's his name, Jordan as well, who from the Transgirlismo podcast that just came around as well. They've been on our show before. We've had all women episodes as well, discussing the state of women within motorsport. It's just the way it's rolled out. I think that being a safe space in a motorsport world that often is not inclusive, and we could probably rattle off 100 examples if we had the time right now to talk about the ways and elements that Formula One directly or indirectly, is not a safe space for many walks of life. I think the fact that we've tried to be, as our knowledge of the world has grown, as our understanding of Formula One's world has grown, and things like that, I think that's made us smarter, better, more understanding, and more empathetic as a platform as time has gone on. And I've learned so much as a journalist, as a writer, as a podcaster, from listening to these people and having them as a part of our community, it enriches us, it makes us better, and it makes us be able to do more and be more powerful as a voice, often for those who are voiceless in this space. So I fully admit it was not the intended plan, but it's beautiful that it kind of worked out that way anyway.
No, and we appreciate it exactly for that. It's like you said. And a lot of sports, I don't think this is exclusive to Formula One, a lot of sports don't feel very welcoming to people who are outside of the white cis male community, let's say. But there's another thing that I think has kind of been showing up, especially in creator spaces and in journalism spaces. And I know you've talked about this. I know this is something that you're quite passionate about. It feels like the industry has kind of been pushing towards automation and AI. And there's a risk of losing that human context, which is already so, let's say, not diluted, but already kind of limited. With projects like Motorsport 101 and things like that, what do you think, how do you think that AI is affecting the industry, and what do you want to see going forward?
It's a difficult one because like I am a bit of a tech guy, and AI has become a bit of an all-encompassing term, and it's not quite as simple as that. I'll give you an example. I've been an audio producer before. I did it for MS. There was a program we used called DX Revive, which does a really, really good job of recovering damaged audio. That, in many people's eyes, would be deemed as AI, but we used to call that machine learning. It's not the generative AI that people really do think is toxic. So, I think a lot of this, to a degree, is media literacy. A lot of people don't know the difference, and the ethical side of it is a messy one. No, I think what AI represents in the motorsport space is, for a lot of people, is cutting corners. And that's what worries me. And I get it to a degree, because a lot of the people that go all in and all I, or go all in on AI, I should say, is workflow improvement. And I think there is a degree of room for that. My general belief is, like any new technology, it should be explored, but it should also have limitations. It should also have legislation in place to protect people in the grand scheme of things. Like, I don't necessarily automatically hate AI. But the context of what it is and what it does and the consequences of it need to be fully explored. And for me personally, in the motorsport space, a lot of it is cutting corners, and I don't like it. A lot of it is having people write for you, having generative AI be used. Look, I was part of MS when they were using generative AI to create pictures, like the Ayrton Senna trend, for example, when they were using that sort of cartoon artwork to put a picture out there. And like, it was a weird time where the autosport side of the company was using generative AI, and then the MS space paid an artist to do a real world version. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like you're part of the same house. Like, you're sending out a really confusing message here. It was. And look, I wasn't a part of the social media team until towards the end of my time there, but it was frustrating representing that brand and seeing that on the outside looking in. A lot of it is cutting corners, and my big fear is that if you can get someone to effectively write for you and not be able to tell the difference, people are going to lose their jobs. Because at the end of the day, people, like, if you're a business, and I'm not necessarily saying that anybody is struggling per se, but any smart business owner will look at the balance sheets, and if money needs to be saved, staff is always the first to go, because that's always going to be your biggest overhead. That's just business 101, unfortunately. Pardon the pun. But I fear that because so many sites and so many places have got this free license to... I mean, What scared me, for example, was during F1 testing, and that people were generating AI images of like the Audi when it hit the track for the first time, and I'm like, oh, this is scary, because the average fan is not going to be able to tell the difference. It's like they're not going to know the techniques of what a barge board is going to look like, or what a side pod could look like, or what a new floor layout could look like, and what's real and what's not. Like, again, we lack education in these elements, and you're taking advantage of an easily vulnerable audience. And anybody can do that now. Grok can do it for free as a part of X. Hell, even the site we're using right now, Riverside, has generative AI elements in it, and I don't agree with them, and I don't use them. So it's so easy to cut a corner. Again, the bad ethics of it, the damage to the environment for the amount of clean water we're using, the amount of GPUs and CPUs we're burning, the economical damage that comes with. It's all like, I'm all for new tech, but I think right now the cons massively outweigh the pros. And so, like, I worry. Again, this is already an industry where people are losing gigs. People are losing jobs and money is moving. The last thing we need is generative AI to potentially taking more people's jobs. Like, we need to protect our bread right now, not ship it out to other places. Like, it's not a good place for it right now. And I sincerely hope that the heads upstairs beat their heads together and work out that for the greater good, this is a place that AI is not in that place yet where we can lean on it. I'm not sure if it ever will be, but right now, absolutely not. And I hope smarter people and people that are in more positions of power than I am realize the net negative that I think it is right now and stay clear.
Yeah, I guess kind of off the back of our AI conversation with you is, with your own podcast, what compromises were you never willing to make when it comes to the content that you produce and the core values of M101 in general?
Ooh, great question. Damn, I'll have to give that one a little bit of thought.
Take your time.
Go for it.
The stuff that I never want to compromise on being me. And I don't ever want to compromise on the guests and the co-hosts we have. I want them to be their authentic selves. I don't ever want them to be scared of being able to put their opinions out there. We're not a debate show. We're not one of these contrived sports shows that feels like we have to score the argument or, have people deliberately take one side over the other. It's becoming very commonplace in sports entertainment right now in general. But the core values are be honest and be true to ourselves. Don't be afraid to rock the boat a little bit, because sometimes that helps in the grand scheme of things. Most importantly, just have fun with it. Like what happened to the fun? Like, it's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is when you listen to the show, we have a great laugh covering it. We take tangents. We don't talk about Formula One all the time on an F1 podcast. We will talk shit about our NFL teams. We'll take the piss out of baseball. We will joke about our because again, I'm a Brit with two Americans. Our respectively shit governments. That's what we lean on, because that's how we play off each other as hosts. And that's what we love doing. We love taking the piss out of ourselves and not taking ourselves too seriously. Obviously, we turn it up when we need to. I mean, damn, it was a tough week last week talking about, for example, IndyCar having a race in the Capitol building and having to go, hang on, we're endorsing the horrible US government right now, but we're all motorsport fans and we all kind of like the charm of IndyCar to a degree, but it's like how do we juggle this while also being sometimes quite comedic? It's hard. It's a hard balancing act to juggle, but we always embrace it with both hands. Our attitude is no topic is off limits.
Yeah.
And that is something that we've always held to high regard, and we've never steered away from it. And, we've burned bridges to a degree, and there's regrets that come with that. There's consequences that come with that. I'm not going to be everybody's friend in this space, and that's something I've had to come to accept. But being ourselves, tackling the difficult topics, but also being able to have fun and play off each other that's something we've always leaned on, and I think that's what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
I think. Go ahead.
No, so go for it, Fatima.
Sure, yeah. I think that's one of the hardest things though about like being a Formula One motorsport fan, IndyCar fan. It's trying to navigate my politics with the sport as well because it's hard. It's really hard sometimes when I see some of the things and I'm just like, why did I choose to get involved at this sport? Like really and truly. That's always like my number one question. And I'm still trying to navigate that, to be completely honest with you. It's so hard because I love motorsport with such a passion. But then sometimes I'm just like, what are we doing here? Truly.
Look, I make no bones about it. Politically speaking, I'm a left-leaning motorsport fan. I support the wrong goddamn sport. Like,
Yeah.
our headline sport has had one black driver in its 76-year mainline history. Like, this is who we are. It's not, and again, I think on the day-to-day, we turn a blind eye to that because it's convenient. But again, on Motorsport One, we are all left. We are all left-leaning politically speaking. I think that's more than obvious if you listen to me, Cam, and RJ, and that's always been us in our show's history with all the hosts we've had. Because Real Talk Motorsport is very right-wing. There is no getting around it. It's very capitalist. We make no bones about it. We choose to race in some very questionable places for human rights practices, like the United States, the United Kingdom, etc.
Period. Period.
Let alone China and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And again, you don't need me to go into detail about the conflicting and difficult political nature of racing in those countries, and how do you address racing in those countries ethically. Lewis Hamilton's a fantastic ambassador for Formula One. Not even he bats 1,000 in this regard, Mr. I've got an AI sponsor on my race helmet. It's difficult to navigate because even the people you really want to like and admire are not perfect in this regard. And it goes to show you that we as humans are inherently flawed, and a lot of it will boil down to where we want to compromise and where we won't. And
that's
it. And as long as we hold each other to account and we talk about these things, I think we'll be better off for it in the long run, because there's no getting around it.
And I think once people understand that, like, this is the sport we support, once people understand that, you can move on from it. I truly think that's it, because there's no point in arguing back and forth on like people's, I guess not so their politics, but trying to show up who has more woke in its actual original sense of the word versus who doesn't have it. You know what I mean? Because we're, at the end of the day, we're also watching Formula One, we're also watching IndyCar, we're also watching all these sports. So the arguments are redundant if you think about it.
Yeah, most people are not going to take the 0 or 100 hardline stance on most forms of their lives. Entertainment, for many of us, is a luxury. For sports, for many of us, is an escape from what the real world, I say with inverted commas for those listening on audio, the real world is. And that's a privilege that we as people that live in relative okayness, something we can get away with. At the end of the day, most people are rarely 0 or 100 on anything from a stance, politically speaking, ethically, socially. Life does not live in black and white. It lives in the shades of grey in between. And working it out and talking and communicating with people as to where you draw those lines, I think will ultimately make us all better for it. Because, look, we love F1. We love the cars that go vroom. And we want to love it, but unfortunately loving that comes with drawbacks, because it's a rich boy sport, it is a misogynistic sport, it is a sport that's been inherently sexist for generations at a time. Socially and economically, it's bad even by most sports standards in the grand scheme of things. But we love the cars that go vroom, and when you have something that you love doing, you will make compromises for it, because that's what love is. Not to get too deep as a single 33-year-old podcast producer, call me. But like ethically,
you heard it here first, folks.
Ethically, that's what we are, right? You know, and when it's a lot harder to love than it is to hate something. That's something that I've learned through life. And when you love something, you will make compromises for it. You will bend and you will pull from where your real stances are, because it's something that you love doing. Like, I could not go cold turkey from Formula One right now, even though there's more than enough grounds where you could say, you know what, I don't want anything to do with this shit anymore. But we won't, because we love it.
Yeah, I was wondering, especially with how unafraid to say the quiet part out loud M101 is. You've seen the way that motorsports has been covered, and especially in today's political climate. Do you think sports and motorsports, the way that they're being covered, has changed in that respect? Like,
great question. I think, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, I think we've become a lot more withdrawn. And I think a lot of places have chosen, when it comes to politics and when it comes to stances and, you know, drawing your lines in the sand, ethically speaking, I think we've become a lot more withdrawn overall as an overall entity. I think the smaller, the me's of the world, the content creators out there on a smaller level that haven't got anything to lose or anything to worry about, like, for example, they might not necessarily work in this space or they're independent, they can still do that, and they will do it unashamedly. I know many places that will do that. The places that are working for somebody, they don't want to alienate their audience, and I think it's a very real world version of, I'm going to go on a small tangent here for just a second. When I think it was Harvey Gantt was running in America for Senate, and they wanted Michael Jordan, who was in Chicago at the time, to endorse him. Obviously, biggest athlete in the world at the time, peak of his popularity. What's the most famous line he comes out as to why he doesn't support him? Republicans buy sneakers too. And it's one of the most famous lines that he ever came out with, and it's one that's been kind of stuck with him for the last 30 years since he said it. Because at the end of the day, the neutral stance, the one that pisses off arguably the least amount of people in their eyes, is the one that will likely keep them afloat or keep them in good favor with the most amount of people. The realization is, I think, for a lot of people that lean left like I do politically, a neutral stance is just as bad as a negative one. And I think a lot of these places don't realize that. Like, why aren't you taking, I mean, again, an F1 example. How many drivers took the knee when 2020 happened? It was, 6, 7 when Hulkenberg came back briefly, you know? And when the drivers who didn't came out with their reason, like Charles Leclerc. Again, I'm a big Charles Leclerc fan. I'm a big Ferrari guy. I like Charles. But when he came out and said, I didn't want to upset anybody. Buddy, you're going to piss somebody off either way here.
That's the thing.
The question is who do you want to piss off? And a lot of people think that being neutral is the safe way out, when in the eyes of many, it just isn't. And I think that's spread up the food chain from how the big places cover these things, because in their eyes, being neutral is the safe option. Mm-hmm. When the reality is that we want places to let, I think a lot of good-natured people want it to lean more to the left, because I think that actually is a safer stance of a lot of people than they want to admit. But unfortunately, I think a lot of old heads have this attitude of just stay away from it, stay clear. We don't want to offend anybody. We don't want to piss anybody off. We want to sit on this fence because we think that's the best play for us. And I actually don't think that is the case.
What was it like stepping into WTF1 when they were going through a really intense transition period? Like, you came in when things kind of just blew up, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. I need to just give it a couple of seconds just to paste this.
Take your time.
No, I mean this in a good way because I'm going to spill a little bit of tea here, and I don't mind doing it because it's been a while. Let's put it to you this way: is anybody here a Top Gear fan? Because I was, and
my mom is.
I know the
my
people
mom
in
is.
Top Gear.
My mom's a really big Top Gear fan.
Right, so it's like when Clarkson, Hammond, and May left.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't seem to understand the analogy, and the reason why I say that is because
It was a big deal.
I joined them knowing full well that Matt, Tommy, and Katie were about to leave. Me and Katie had gone way back. I'd worked with her when she first got into the industry, so she was already a friend. But Matt and Tommy and Katie were leaving right towards the end of that year. Let me put it to you this way. Everything that could have gone wrong with that transition period went wrong.
Oh no.
And I'm going to be real with you. I took the opportunity on knowing it was a once-in-a-lifetime gig where if I said no, I would have regretted it forever because this is exactly the sort of gig that I always wanted. Dream job territory. So I was always going to say yes. It was either that or I work another 10 years in the bookmakers. I was always going to grab it with both hands. I went into it knowing there was like a 60% chance this was going to fail. But I had to give it a go. That was my attitude. Everything about that transition period went wrong in the sense of the hosts left earlier than they were intended to. The press release was ugly in the sense of I was described as Dre Harrison, host of Motorsport 101 and vocal opponent of the We Racers 1 movement. And I'm like, whoa. Because I did write a piece about that in 2020 about the flaws of that inherent program. But vocal opponent, no, that was not my stance on the matter. My matter was it needs to be more transparent and it needs to have more of a long-term plan as opposed to, oh no, I think diversity support in F1 is bad actually. No!
As a black person?
Yeah,
That's a hot take.
Right, so the press release was written badly. The hosts left sooner than expected because the plan was they were going to integrate us with Matt, Tommy, and Katie for the first month, have their audience get to know us a little bit better, and then them step away. That didn't happen. It was cold turkey. And we had to come into this raging audience who half of them didn't even know that they had gone. When I did our first Twitch stream, because half of them weren't on YouTube and had not seen the goodbye video that they put out. The goodbye video that was then taken down because the bosses there thought that it was a free plug to Matt and Tommy, and that was not the case. So a lot of people on the internet genuinely thought that Matt and Tommy had been fired, and that was not true. They chose to leave of their own volition. So naturally, when we made our debuts, we got thrown under the bus because they were thought, well, they've been fired for these bums. And well, so all my attitude was when I was publicly on there for WTF1 was just give us a chance. Change scares people. People are going to walk away. That's inevitable when you are such a personality-driven brand like what WTF1 was. People weren't subscribed to them because they were WTF1. People were subscribed to them because they were Matt, Tommy, and Katie. They built that brand up. Matt had been there 6 years. Tom had been there from day one. Katie had been there 3 years and through the pandemic, where they all got to know each other really well. So it was always going to be exceptionally difficult replacing a team that won so many hearts and minds with that brand. So the moment that Matt and Tommy P1 launched in March, I knew our goose was cooked, because we'd already burnt that bridge of public support, where the sense of, due to the actions of people above us, we, like I said, even if we had the best possible start, I still think it ultimately wouldn't have worked out. But we did ourselves no favors in the early going. You only ever get one chance to make a first impression with people. And a lot of people made their minds up right away that this was just not going to be it. The channel lost over 100,000 subscribers the first month. It was a bloodbath. I make no bones about it. A lot of people. Imagine going into work every day and realizing that, we lost 20,000 subscribers overnight. It's hard. It's hard because then it's hard not to take that personally as a content creator, because they hate us. And that led to decisions being made internally, like, okay, no more faces on the content. Because if you go on WTF1, there was a video where, as a team, we were making liveries for Red Bull. That was one of our early examples of our work, where we were all on camera, we were all trying to, play off each other. And then when that bombed, it was like, okay, no more faces. We're just going to have you guys voice over scripted content, basically. And then they brought in Jack Nichols to take over Matt's most iconic series, the reactions to their Grand Prix, basically. Yeah. They did one episode, didn't work out, killed the series. And if you know what happened to Jack Nichols later on that year in terms of how he lost his job with Formula E, well, that came back to us as well. Because again, everything that went wrong in that sense. And it was a lot of, trying to brave face your way through it, keep plowing on. I busted my arse back there trying to write articles for them, continuing Hot Takes Wednesday, which I really did enjoy doing. The company went through a talent expansion. They basically just hired a bunch of influencers as well, which again kind of undermined us as hosts, because all of a sudden you're bringing in all these dudes to do these collabs and partnerships, and you're paying them big appearance fee money when we're on salaries. It was a mess internally, and I just think that the people at the top involved didn't know how to deal with the inevitable shock that was going to happen of people following Matt and Tommy, because that was always going to happen. They walked away for a reason, and the reason why was, let's cut out the middleman. They could do it better themselves. Why work for somebody else and take a salary when you can do what you're doing by yourself and pocket all the money? It's what any smart content creator would do. If they knew they had an audience that could support it, that they could do it full time. Just open up a business. Like the second day they announced they were leaving, people were like, "Oh, they're on Company's House. They've opened up a new business together." They could put two and two together. It was obvious what was going to happen. So I did the very best I could, and the people that know I busted my arse, because even though I knew deep down it was a bit of a dead donkey at that point, I at least wanted to. I knew I was going to be chopped liver, but I wanted to walk away knowing I gave it everything I had, basically. Yeah. I was there for a year. 9 months in, I was pulled to one side and I was basically told, yeah, Dre, we're closing the website down and we're shutting the podcast down. That ended up being a lie, by the way, because the podcast is still going. If you still want to look on the internet for that, they brought in a bunch of other people, and this is no disrespect to any of them. They kept the podcast alive after they let me go. They brought in people like James Coker and Ash Vanderlei, Luke Francis from the Racing Pilot, I believe now host it. All lovely people. They had Hayden and Amber Jones there. There was the Phase 3 rebrand after We Were Let Go. They've tried it, but the lesson to be learned, I think, ultimately, is that people make brands, not the other way around. And asking anybody to, you've got to try, because it was such a money-making machine. It had over 1 million subscribers on YouTube, over 1 million followers on Instagram and Twitter. It was such a huge entity. They had to try replacing the hosts that they had. Again, like Top Gear, it was at the time it was too big to fail, so they had to try something else. So that I understand, but replacing them with relative nobodies at the time by comparison to what the juggernauts they were, and thinking it was all just going to magically work out, was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I had to give it a go.
Yeah, that's a really tough pill to swallow. And you know what, though? You're not the first person who's been through this. You certainly won't be the last person who's been through this. I mean, I've seen it happen in so many different shows that I've watched where the main hosts that have really helped build that fan base of that program go away, and then they bring in the replacements. No, unfortunately, it's just so hard to connect with the replacements when you've loved those people for so long. And then they get rid of the replacements and they bring in more replacements, and people tend to like those replacements more because it's like, okay, there was a long enough transition period where it's like, oh, okay. So it's always a second group of people essentially who get the worst of it. And it's such a tough pill to swallow. And I guess on that, when I was listening to your podcast again with Alex, you mentioned that it was a hard thing for you to swallow, essentially saying that, understand that your time at WTF1 was a failure. And for me, I don't think your time there was a failure. You were up against the odds. Like, unfortunately, there was, no matter how much you wanted to succeed, the position that you were put in, the time that you were put in, you were always going to be fighting this uphill battle. But you did the best that you could do with the tools that you had. And while, you know, you may have been let go, it does seem to be that the fans were able to connect with you towards the end of your time there. I mean, in your goodbye post on Instagram, there were so many people that were gutted to see you leave. You had so much support in that. So when you think about all of that, how does it feel to know that, yes, it was a really tough time there, and yes, you were let go, but people were still sad to see you go? Like, how does that make you feel?
A little bit conflicted. I'm not going to lie to you, and the reason why is because, Leah, I took it hard when they let me go. And like, again, when you're a content creator who cares about their work and they want to see it do well, like, again, I think that's a very natural feeling to have. When you want to see it do well and then ultimately it didn't work out, I was the only casualty of that team of 3 that was left over because Kieran was very sadly let go very early on. Was, again, complete injustice that he was let go. He was a very funny man, a great TikToker, was a great person to host a network, but again, just didn't work out. But it's hard not to take that personally. Like, deep down, you knew it was a low percentage shot at best. You know, and it's hard because, again, the logical part of your brain says, you were doomed to fail. This was never going to work. You did the best you could, but it was always going to be like, you know, an opportunity where it would be a miracle if it works out all right in the end. But the one thing that did pick me up was the fact that, again, the people who knew. And the people who did stick around, and there was a fair few people that stuck around, it filled me with a lot of joy knowing that even despite everything, that we were given a fair chance by a lot of people, and they did enjoy what I put out. And I took a lot of pride in that time at WTF1. That, for me, that was like, I made it. And a little short story was, one of the things that we did at WTF1 was the campsite at Silverstone. And that's a huge element of it, is that it's fans from the UK, sometimes other countries even, that will come over for the British Grand Prix, but we have a campsite where you can meet the hosts, you can do a bunch of activities, high quality campsite, great event planning and all of that. People had already booked those tickets in place, because these things you book months in advance, because you got to put deposits down, money, planning, all of that stuff. They'd booked those tickets expecting Matt, Tommy and Katie to be there, and all of a sudden they're now gone. And it's now us. And it was only 3 of us, because one of them had already had plans to be at Silverstone anyway. They would have their own accommodation booked and planned and all of that. So now I'm like in the hornet's nest thinking, oh crap, they're not here to see me. You know, they're here to see Matt and Tommy, and they were doing their own stuff. They were fun fact, they were actually the tannoy announcements you had when you were entering the track each day. So I was reminded of them as I was walking into the track on practice and all the other days I was in the campsite. You know, that was quite funny. But the amount of people that did walk up to me and then have a conversation and say, look, you were put in an impossible situation. You've done really good stuff. I enjoy your content. I enjoy you. Like, I took a lot of pride in like hosting Hot Takes Wednesday towards the end of my time there as well. I had a lot of fun with it. I got to do live streams with a bunch of really cool racing drivers and people. Louis Delatraz was one of them. Ollie Webb was another. Jaime Alguersuari, who went completely off the rails, but it was fun just watching that in the background. Some other content creators like Josh Ravel, great guy. I got to do a lot of cool things in that year I was with them, and the people that did stick around, and the people that like the WT find out they had a Discord server. I was regularly active in there talking to people. They were wonderful people, and they were understanding, empathetic people, and that definitely picked me up again because, boy, it was hard to take. That was a very hard Christmas because I was let go December and officially, and you're trying to be happy for your family and all of that when you realize like, oh, I'm going to be jobless in January, and like, what next? And like, how do we go from here, basically? So, yeah. It was definitely a conflicting sort of feeling because you failed to a degree, but at the same time, a lot of good came out of that opportunity as well. And as much as I've been critical of it here and in other places, do not get it twisted. I would do it again tomorrow if the opportunity came, because you can't walk away from things like that. You can't. Yeah. You don't. I'd rather have gone all in and tried it than said no and think, well, what if that happened to somebody else instead? So it was a difficult year, but do not get it twisted. A lot of good came out of it too.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess we're kind of gearing towards the end of our time with you. It's been so lovely to have you here. And we kind of already spoke about this earlier. So we know you took on a new role as the creator or social content creator, I think you said, for Crash.net. So in this, I know we spoke about like your time, maybe potentially taking some time off with motorsport again, but like in that, how did you know that you were ready to step back into the motorsport space, especially a space where you were working for somebody else, and you had to adhere to, I guess, their rules? How did you know that you were officially ready to take back on that role again?
Because I felt like I had unfinished business, and I've grown in confidence as a content creator, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, because that WTF1 experience kind of hardened me in a sense of where it was like, for years I believed that the stuff I was doing wasn't great. I was like, look at these professionals doing this stuff and doing these long form stories and doing these videos, and I'm thinking, oh, well, my stuff's crap by comparison. No, and I've had a lot of people pick me up. I've had a lot of people that support me, and I'm very blessed to have that support, and a lot of that has made me change my attitude towards thinking, no, this is good, like this is good, meaningful stuff, and there's people out there that enjoy this. And it, like I said, it felt like unfinished business. It was a year at WTF1 where it didn't work out, but I also kind of came out of it thinking, okay, I can host a podcast. There is an audience out there that did enjoy it, and there's people out there that thought this was good. Then I go to MS and under the Motorsport Network, and again, I was in charge of all their audio, and again, got to work with some incredibly cool people like Karim Chanhok over at Sky Sports F1, Kev Turner, their editor overall. Meeting Formula 3 drivers like Louis Sharp and Callum Voisin and Arvid Lindblad and people like that. Now, I've now can say I've interviewed an F1 driver, which is nuts that Arvid Lindblad's now made it. Good for him, etc. Getting those opportunities and being able to prove that, yes, I can do this, when I've always... Look, I think it's common for a lot of creators to have that imposter syndrome effect where you just go, is this good? Or the views aren't quite what you think they are, or the feedback wasn't as good as you were hoping, and it knocks you a little bit. I think I've become a lot better at being able to handle that over the years. So, yeah, there was a time where I was thinking, do I want to go back into this again? Like, before I joined the Motorsport Network, I sat there, I had to give myself a good think and say, are you ready for this? Because this might not work. You know, you'd seen other people get laid off from the place. You've seen people on LinkedIn talk about how their experience was bad, you know. But I also said to myself, if you think your stuff's good, then it will be good here and people will appreciate it. And that's ultimately what happened. And I'm very fortunate. Crash has given me the keys. They're like, here's the MotoGP podcast right away. You get to host it now. We'll handle the bad comments. Just do your thing. That's all I could ever ask for. You know, I was like, that's all I needed to hear. I was like, Dre, you've got the right personality for this. Go and do it. And that's why I will always tell anybody that's listening to this, back yourself, believe in yourself, because honestly, even that is better than the imposter syndrome belief that no one believes in you. If one person can believe in you, let it be yourself, because you can't expect anybody else to do that. You know, so just take the opportunity with both hands and just go for it. Because at the end of the day, I would rather try and fail than never try at all. So I'm very fortunate to be back in this space again. I am so happy that I am. And I feel better about it than I ever did before in the previous two companies I worked for. So, yeah, like I said, unfinished business and just wanting a platform where I can build and grow this thing and say, yeah, I'm here now. This is, you know, and that's what I want to feel going forward, rather than saying, hey, is this crap? And I don't want to be that person anymore, because that person scared me, and that person maybe not want to do things. So the opposite of that is just a much nicer mental environment for me to be in. I think that's the right way of me saying it.
That's really amazing.
For sure. So last question from us. One of the reasons why Fatima and I started this podcast is because we very much believe in storytelling and in the art of teaching and in learning from each other. And we haven't really talked much about motorsports, but we're going to now just for a little bit. You mentioned MotoGP, and one thing that we always like to do is look for new things to teach each other and learn from our guests. And so our final question is, what do you think is one lesson that F1 can take from MotoGP and MotoGP can take from F1?
Wow, great question. I'll go the other way first because it's interesting.
Yeah.
Especially now we know that Liberty now owns both of these series.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect timing for it. MotoGP could learn a lot from Formula One when it comes to making people care and sponsor acquisition. Because that's something that MotoGP has really struggled with in the last 15, 20 years. As someone that's watched them both now for most of my life, since I was a child, I've often said that MotoGP is better week to week for action than Formula One is. Formula One's had its tricky problems like navigating, like dirty air, overtaking, overall entertainment, things like that. Don't get me wrong, MotoGP's kind of gone down that road a little bit as well, because it's gone a lot more technology-wise. It's gone more into downforce and dirty air itself because of the way the sport's developed. But week to week, I enjoyed MotoGP more than Formula One. But it's the classic phrase of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, doesn't make a sound. You know, you need to get people to care about you. Having the best racing product is one thing, but getting people to care about it was a different problem entirely. Like, I'll give you a couple of examples here. It's like athletics. When Usain Bolt was dominating and people were tuning in specifically for Bolt because he's going to run stupid times, he's going to point his fingers in the air and we're all going to love it. Great. Love the spectacle. What's going to happen when he inevitably retires? Like, I remember Michael Johnson, the famous American 400-meter, 200-meter runner, talked about this a lot on BBC's coverage. He was like, we need to develop new stars. We need to develop new stars because Bolt's not going to be around forever. Bolt retired at 30. He retired young for an elite athlete. You know, so if you're not generating new stars and getting people to care about you, no one's going to watch you. And that's something that MotoGP, I think, had a problem with. They leaned on Valentino Rossi for years and years and years. And then when he finally did retire in 2021, I don't think they did a good enough job building up someone like Marc Marquez, who, if you know MotoGP, is an unbelievable athlete. Like, the reason why I think he resonated with so many people last year was because of his comeback story. For those who don't know, he had a horror arm break injury back in 2020. Took 4 surgeries to fix it. There was so many complications, including a bone graft that got infected. It wasn't healed properly. He had to go to the Mayo Clinic to fix it the 4th time round because the arm joint had rotated 30 plus degrees. He was going to retire at like 29 as a result of the arm injury, but he persevered, had 4 surgeries, got through Honda being bad, went to Ducati a couple of years ago, and has now won the world title, and is now arguably the greatest of all time because he's now got his 9th world title. That was hailed. That was the one time MotoGP got it right because they made the point. This is one of the great sporting comebacks ever. That was storytelling. That was, this is why this matters, because Marc Marquez is this dude. He's a freak alien talent that we've never seen before at this level. This is why you should care. MotoGP generally has been really bad at that over the last few years. Liberty is very good. They're a media company. They've done a generally very good job at making people care about Formula One. And DTS, Engineered Insanity, these were all purposeful plans to get people to care. They got a movie come out. They've got a lot better at social media. It adds up, right? So if there's one thing MotoGP can learn from F1, and I think it will now, it's under Liberty's hands, it's storytelling, getting people to care, getting money through the door, getting new money through the door, because MotoGP is really bad at getting sponsors outside of oil companies, equipment firms, and cryptocurrency. Not good money, as you could say. So if there's one thing Formula One can take from MotoGP, vice versa, I would say they could probably stand to do a better job of thinking about protecting the racing product a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Again, I'd like to back myself up with examples here. Before this latest set of cars that's going to come out this year, which I'm very excited for, the last major shift we had was 2022, right? You know, the brand new cars, the ground effect era that we had, etc., right? It's funny because Max Verstappen won 15 Grand Prix that year. But if you actually watched the races, I think it was actually quite an entertaining season. There was many good races that came out that year, right? Because the cars could follow each other. The dirty air wasn't as big a factor. You could follow more. You could pass more. Races are inherently more entertaining. It wasn't just follow the leader fests and hope for a pit stop battle or something along those lines. Then engineers do what engineers do. They find more downforce, they make the cars go quicker, they learn the rule book, and then inevitably, when the cars go quicker, the product gets worse. You know, and then people lose interest because the on-track product isn't as good. The FIA is pretty bad, in my opinion, at protecting that. They weren't quick enough to close the loopholes that came around when people started figuring out, oh, we can add more downforce here. We can change this floor layout. We can add this and add that to make the cars quicker. The FIA could shut all those doors if they want to, but they're too slow in doing that. So, as the phrase goes, it's like locking the gate after the horse has bolted. And as a result, as much as I love Formula One, it's like you're waiting for the good race to happen.
Yeah.
Rather than being excited week to week going, this is going to be a great race this weekend, where what you're doing really is more like, well, maybe this weekend turns out to be great. Oh, it might rain this weekend. That might help. Or, oh, Lando Norris is starting from row 7 or something. That might make things more interesting. It's like you're looking for things to be entertained with rather than being entertained by the race itself. So if I think, given that MotoGP was so good at that 4 years of just having a really good track product and, politically speaking, not doing shit that was going to mess with the racing, I think that's something that Formula One could take from MotoGP. And that is protect the product more than anything else, because ultimately that is what will get new people to come in, and ultimately that is what people will stick around for.
Yep.
Like, if F1 fans, if nothing else, we are stubborn as hell. We will sit through bad season after bad season after bad season in the hope that one turns out to be good.
We will sit through Monaco 2025.
2023, the entire season.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Max. One of the greatest to ever do it. Like, a 19-win season is unbelievable. But did you want to sit through that week in and week out? No, of course not.
Every single weekend I was like, am I doing this again? Am I really going to sit here and do this again? And did I do it again? Yes.
How's Max going to win this week? You know, no one really wants that, you know?
I think it was 24 that Monaco had that red flag right at the beginning, and it just ended up being like an hour and a half parade of cars. Like, I'm happy for Charles, but that was a boring race.
We waited an hour and a half for effectively an Alex Jakes monologue at the end. Don't get me wrong.
It was so great. It was the best part of the race.
Don't get me wrong. Me and Alex Jakes follow each other on Twitter. I love the man. He's a fantastic broadcaster, one of the best in sports. Mm-hmm. I was not wanting to wait an hour and a half of Monaco traffic for that monologue. It was not worth it. You know? So, ultimately...
He had time to perfect it.
Yeah.
All the time in the world. He could sit there and he could have written that out on Sanskrit. The amount of time it would have taken for him to figure that out because of how little we got in the actual race itself. Because
Monaco,
we still insist on racing at Monaco, even though these cars are too big and too fast for it. But what can you do?
It's Monaco, you know? It's Monaco. But you know what, Dre? Honestly, you're so right about the MotoGP story with Mark, because literally his story is what got me into MotoGP. I said, this guy is nuts. This guy is nuts. What's going on over there?
Right, because MotoGP is inherently a crazy sport in the first place. Let's put it to you this way, but for perspective's sake, right? Formula One cars have about 1,000 horsepower now, but they also weigh about 800 kilos. So they've got, if you want to do the math on that, that's roughly like 1,200 brake horsepower per ton. Not to get too nerdy for a second here, right? MotoGP bikes have about 300 to 320 horsepower, and they weigh 150 kilos. Basically, like almost one of me after a heavy dinner. Now, that's 2,000 brake horsepower per ton. These things accelerate even faster than Formula One cars do under certain environments. They are, the all-time speed record is 225 miles an hour on a bike that you're holding on to like this for dear life. Like, it is a terrifying sport to watch. And like, I will always be the first person to say, this is not for everybody, because there are levels to this. People have died recently, you know, like it's a grim sport to sometimes follow, because you always know in the back of your head there's a significant percentage chance someone's going to be seriously hurt. In Formula One, to a degree, there's almost an element of, I don't want to use the word comfort, but it's like in Formula One, it's either 0 or 100. Normally, it's either everybody's fine or tragically someone gets killed for some other side, whether it be a safety oversight or something horrible like that, right? In MotoGP, there's a lot of what I like to call medium injuries, broken bones, a lot of broken collarbones, broken wrists, broken legs, you know, concussions, that sort of thing. But unfortunately, that fatality scale is way higher than most sports. So look, I'll be the first person to say it's not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart. But as a visual spectacle, when you're seeing some of these riders that are riding 300 horsepower bikes with all the technology on them and are riding them at 200, 210, 220 miles an hour. Like I said, the top speeds are now higher than Formula One in most places now. To be able to do that, to be able to turn the technology, like we're using ride height devices like hydraulics on bikes to make them accelerate and turn faster. It is an incredible sport from a technical and visual spectacle. I think it's even more of a spectacle than Formula One is. And like I said, Marc Marquez, if you know your bike racing, Marc Marquez is a freak. He broke through at age 20. He basically reinvented how to ride a bike in the sense, just for context, in the sense of his riding style, and I'm not going to embarrass myself a little bit here, of just having his entire body basically hang off the side of a bike when steering. He redefined what it was to ride a motorcycle. And like, if you ever watch like older bike, it was like when Mick Doohan was riding back in the 90s. Apparently, his son's a racing driver now. Who knew?
Please, stop it. Leave Jack alone.
Poor Jack.
But his dad was quite good at bike racing. And if you watch those clips of the 90s, everybody's got their backs up like this. Like, everyone's got their backs up in the air. Mark is hanging off the thing. Like a bike that's leaning like 65 degrees towards the ground to help turn it because of all the downforce and the power they generate. As a visual sport, it is unbelievable to watch. It's an unbelievable sport to watch. Like, I have so much respect for anyone that can do that on a motorcycle at that level. It is crazy. That's why bike racing was actually my first love before Formula One was, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that about me, but I was a MotoGP fan before I was an F1 fan, believe it or not. Like, so it's an unbelievable sport. But like I said, the Marquez comeback story is why people like you, Fatima, cared. Because it was a story that transcended motorsport. That doesn't happen very often. You know, like Lewis Hamilton taking the knee, is one of those things, for example, that transcends motorsport. We don't get those moments very often. So when they come, you got to take them with both hands, because MotoGP has never had that kind of moment. Apart from that one time, Valentino Rossi might have kicked Marquez off a bike, but that's a discussion for another day. I might have written a book about that somewhere.
And we're just gonna end it there.
Yeah.
Great. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you. And hopefully, I can join this friendship of yours and Misha, please, and thank you.
Yes.
Look, man.
Group chat. New trio forming.
Fatima, it's been a pleasure. I just want to say, I've known Misha for a little while. Like, I love her approach of, I don't think they'll admit it so much, but it's the whole idea of almost like, and I don't mean this as an insult, F1 for dummies, in a sense of like educating people on like the basics and why this matters when it comes to Formula One. And there's little elements of it that people might not know, those pockets of knowledge that like get lost in the in-between. Like, Misha is so good at that sort of thing. Truly. And it also helps that they're also a ridiculously nice person. That kind of helps too. Like,
you're too nice to me.
Misha was one of my favorite cheerleaders I've had in the last couple of years when it comes to just wooing me on, and I adore them. And that's why at the moment that they asked me to come on, I was like, hell yes, absolutely. Like, when do you need me? Basically, we'll figure it out. And next thing you know, we've been on this pod now for over an hour.
I know. What's
we're about to hit 2 hours.
I know. Okay, so please let our audience know where they can find you, because I'm sure whoever watches this will love you after this. So please let them know.
I can only hope. If you've enjoyed the last 105 minutes, then God bless you, because I have waffled for England and St. George. But if you liked it somehow, you can follow me on social media. I am still sadly on Elon Musk's site at Dre Harrison 101. I'm on Blue Sky at dreharrison.bsky.social, Dre Harrison 101 on Instagram. And if you want to follow my new job over at Crash, if you want to get into MotoGP, big season coming up. That they start in Thailand on March 1st. Crash.net. Can't miss them if you're into MotoGP coverage. I'm over there. I'm hosting their MotoGP podcast now going forward. Me, Lewis Duncan, and Pete McLaren do fantastic work over there. But yeah, if you want to listen to what I talk about every week, which is obviously Formula One, MotoGP, and IndyCar, Motorsport 101 is where I host that's my baby. It always has been. Do check us out. I'd like to think we are an alternative voice to the mainstream when it comes to motorsport. It's a safe space for all walks of life, and it's done by all walks of life, and I genuinely love doing so. So get in touch, say hi, and just once again, thank you, Fatima and Misha, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. My favorite podcast I've ever been on, man. This,
yay!
It's an hour 45 and it's absolutely flown by, which goes to show how good it is. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible! Thank you so much, Trey.
And yeah, there you have it. So this, I guess, has been the Hold the Past podcast. I've been your host, Fatima.
And I've been your host, Misha.
And if you like this episode, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share, because we are new and we would love it. You can find us at Hold the Past Podcast on Spotify and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you would like to connect with us, you can find us at Hold the Past Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And that's all I have for you today. That's all we have for you today, and we'll see you all in the next one.